Welcome to We Are Old, Get Over It, the podcast where we celebrate the wisdom of age and maybe a little grumbling too. Our guests dive into topics that matter most to us, from navigating the digital world to embracing new adventures and the challenges that hold us back. Join me for about 30 minutes of insightful conversations, honest reflections, and a whole lot of get over it attitude. So let's get started. Welcome back to We Are Old, Get Over It. I'm your host, Ken Gluckman, and today we're talking about the one thing most of you are working overtime to avoid, the what-ifs of serious illness. Look, we spend a lot of our lives planning weddings, vacations, retirements, but when it comes to how we want to live while we're dealing with a tough diagnosis, we suddenly go mute. We're going to change that today. Joining me are the creators of Go-ish, a deck of cards designed to turn your priorities into a conversation instead of a crisis. And to keep us honest, we have the frontline team from Avow, palliative care, I'm going to get it right sometimes, who've been using these cards to help patients take control of their lives long before the end is even in sight. The experience that we're going to go through, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how this all happened to get people from Florida and people from California together. In the first season, I did an interview with Avow Hospice, and in the second season, I did an interview with Go-ish, which is from the Code Alliance. They are both 501c3 charities. I thought that the cards might work for Avow, so I gave them a set of cards. The staff in the palliative care division of Avow thought it might work for them. So today, I've arranged for the two nonprofits to discuss the experience of using the Go-ish cards. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to introduce the guests in a second, but the first thing I want to do is I usually start every podcast with a quote. So I have a quote to start and a quote to finish. And these are quotes that I pulled up on the internet regarding the Go-ish cards. So here's the quote to start. Rather than the often blank response to the question, what is most important to you? The cards provide the vocabulary to give voice to the patient's needs and concerns. And that's from the Journal of Palliative Medicine. And with that, we're going to start. And we're going to start, usually I like to start with the ladies and give them the first shot. But since you guys did all the research, we're going to start with the gentleman first and go over the cards a little bit and how they came about. I decided to call this podcast The Deck We All Have to Play. So let's get started. And first, I want to introduce the gentleman from the Go-ish cards. And you're going to see these cards. I'm sure everybody here has a copy of them. This is what the cards look like. Now, you don't have to have the card. You'll be able to do the same thing as the card online in many languages. And the men will tell you about that. And the ladies will tell you about their experiences of actually using the cards. So I think that'll be really good. And the deck is a very small deck. It's a little bit smaller than you would get at a casino. And it comes with instructions, which are very small. The instructions are only this long. How are we doing here? I guess show it like that. There you go. And it comes with the wild card being at the end. I thought that was very creative, is you have a wild card involved in it. And this is what the cards look like as a pack. Okay. And you can buy them online from the charity, or you can do it online and it won't cost you anything. So let's get started. Most people spend more time picking a Netflix movie than they do deciding what the quality of life actually looks like to them. Why is it so hard to talk about preferences while we're still fighting disease? Why do traditional medical forms fail to capture the human element of living with illness? I'm going to introduce two men that have been involved in the creation of the Go-ish cards that the two ladies have had the experience of using in their facility. So, Gary, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go over to Larry, okay? Go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Lee. I'm a physician. I've spent most of my career at County Hospital in San Jose, California, Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. I started out as a primary care physician, then went into geriatrics, and then became a palliative care doctor. During my career, I've also spent time as a hospice physician working for an organization called Suncrest Hospice. I'm currently, as one of my colleagues says, voluntarily unemployed, but I have been on the board of the CODA Alliance for the last, 10 years, I guess. And just to clarify, I'm not one of the creators, but I'm helping to educate and helping the CODA Alliance with distributing the cards. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. And thank you for being with us today. Larry, give us a little background on yourself.
Good. Well, I'm Larry Wildemeth. I served in the United States Navy for 5 years, and during Vietnam War, got out of the Navy and went to seminary. Served as a pastor for 25 years in Hawaii and in San Jose. And about 27 years ago, I became a hospital chaplain at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. And during that time, there was a lot of movement in end of life work through Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and we created an alliance there, which formed our CODA Alliance, and we started CODA Alliance in 1999, and then from that we developed the Go Wish cards through some clinical studies through our founder, Dr. Betty Minkum.
Great. So you guys really are the creators of the why behind the cards. And the ladies that are with us today, they're the how it works for patients who are still actively seeking treatment. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce you. How about if we start with Deborah first?
Okay, I'm Deborah, and I am the palliative care chaplain here at Avow. I've been with Avow for 5 years, and I will get into it, but I have found these cards to be a very useful tool.
Okay, so the podcast is over now that we did that, right? It's been very nice. Let me read the last quote. No, just kidding. Okay, that's great. I'm glad you told us. You took all the excitement, all the excitement of the and surprise out of it. But okay, no, I think that we should talk to Dawn. Maybe she'll be a little bit calmer about getting out the information. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, my name is Dawn Kolderman. I am a senior clinical director here at Avow. I've been here for almost 18 years, and I currently serve as the director of the Avow Palliative Care Department. I also oversee bereavement and our children's department as well. So really kind of utilizing all of the teams that we have. I think the Go Wish game can really be utilized for any age group, to be very honest with you. So I'm excited to talk about it, how we've used it, and how different modalities use the cards, because there's so many different ways to use the Go Wish game that even if you didn't want to read the directions in the small print, you don't have to, because you can utilize it any way you can. So I'm excited to talk about how it's worked well for our teams.
Okay, so could you give me a little bit of background of what palliative care is? Because there are
Sure.
some people that don't have any idea what it is.
Most people don't, to be honest with you, Ken. So I spend a lot of my time talking about the difference between hospice and palliative care. A true palliative care department is a holistic approach to a life-limiting disease. That's a pretty broad statement to make. But in general, it is for any patient that has been diagnosed with a life-limiting disease that are still seeking aggressive curative treatment. Many of my patients are traveling within the US, out of the US for different types of treatments. That could be Western medical treatments. Sometimes they seek, other holistic forms of treatment for their disease processes. But it's a medical component where my nurse practitioners and physician gather all the information from other practitioners, because many of my patients are seeing multiple specialists. We gather that information, we put it all together for them, and sometimes, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because there are sometimes we're having conversations with patients about the end of their life or about their disease trajectory, and that should have happened, months before they came to us, right? But those are difficult conversations to have. We are very good at having those conversations. So the medical component is that piece. We take care of the side effects that the treatments that they are having are causing. So, for example, the most common is pain. Many of my patients do suffer from pain. There's a lot of nausea and vomiting and other side effects that come alongside with some of these treatments. They also have the opportunity to speak to my licensed clinical social worker to talk about advanced care planning. that is the time at the beginning of your disease progression is to start putting your ducks in a row, so to speak. Again, having those conversations with the families, oftentimes with the patient, the caregiver, and the extended family to really take a deep dive into what do I want my future to look like? What do I have as far as, life insurance and healthcare surrogacy, living wills, things of that nature. As you can imagine, in the state of Florida, we have a lot of our patients are coming from up north. So someone may say, well, yeah, I had all this information in Ohio, but now I'm in Florida. How does it change? So again, our licensed clinical social worker is excellent at that. And of course, formulating those difficult conversations. And then they get the added bonus of meeting with Chaplain Deb. And Chaplain Deb can really meet the individual and their loved ones spiritually, wherever they're at in their journey. It doesn't have to be a specific religion, so to speak. It could be any spirituality. And sometimes they don't want to speak to Chaplain Deb at first, but then they really, as the disease tends to progress, and it and often does, they really start questioning the why me? Why does God do this to me? What have I done wrong? So she's really able to tap into where they are now and again prepare them for the future. And we're very blessed here at Avow that I also have a nurse navigator, and his role is really to make sure that my patients and their family have everything they could possibly need in our community so that we don't want them to have a fear of housing insecurities, food insecurities, being able to find medications, durable medical equipment if they need a hospital bed or a wheelchair. So I think we've done a really excellent job of making sure that our program is very well rounded and we can meet the needs of our patients. So we're very fortunate.
Okay. Gary, would you like to add anything to that?
I think that's a great summary. It's part of a medical team who's come out of medical training. We as physicians tend to focus a lot on the disease itself and can tend to lose sight of the patient and family. And now that I'm in palliative care, I think what the palliative care team brings to things is, like you were saying, Dawn, a really holistic approach to care, thinking about not just the medical issues, but what are the social and psychological and spiritual issues that we need to talk about as this disease is affecting you and your family members.
Okay. Let me just interject one thing as the non-medical person in the group and non-chaplain person in the group. This is probably one of the worst things that happens to a family. When they learn that someone is severely ill and they know that something is going to happen in a short period of time, maybe it's a week, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, and they have to make decisions that they didn't even think about. Part of what we're doing here today is trying to get people to think about it, especially guide them to help them make their own decisions. Because I think the biggest problem in the research that I've done is that people haven't thought about it and they need to be guided by questions so that they can give the answers to those questions to their loved ones or to their doctors. So that's going to lead us into the next segment I'd like to talk about, which is what exactly are go-ish cards. So I'll let Gary and Larry, whichever one of you wants to kind of describe what it is for people and what languages it's in and where they can get it and so on. And then we can go into it a little bit more. And then I want to speak again with the ladies to find out what their research was. Okay. So gentlemen, why don't you give us a little background on the cards and how they're used?
But when we began Coda Alliance, who developed the cards, we thought education was going to be the key. And so we did education things with doctors, nurses, social workers, and elder lawyers, trying to help them to understand, even clergy, because many clergy get no end-of-life education in seminary or in their training. But then we found that there were other groups in the community that were doing a better job. But we also were trying to figure out how to facilitate that discussion. And so again, Dr. Mencken found these set of statements and put them on just little 3x5 cards. And she took some time off from her practice. She was a palliative care doctor, and we did some clinical studies. We got a grant, and we're able to do some clinical studies. And since then, there have been numerous clinical studies and reviews on the use of Code Alliance, because in the medical community, that's what they value. Has it been clinically proven? Has it been clinically demonstrated? And we have not changed these statements. I think we're in our fourth printing. We've just updated the color. But the key is asking the question, how? Because the medical community doesn't change from the top down. And Dr. Mencken always talked about, the childbirth industry never changed from the top down. It was the lay people who started pushing for more changes, having dads in the delivery room, on and on, different kinds of changes. And that's what the model that she wanted to do is to get more and more family people involved in talking about what are your desires, what's important to you, how can we be of help to you at this time of life. And again, our dream had been that, in California, you can 18 years old, you can fill out an advance directive. But what does an 18-year-old know? And again, these cards can be a design and an encouragement to them just to think about it, or it can be someone who's just received a diagnosis and is overwhelmed. And they deal with multiple areas, some financial things. I mean, do you have your will? Do you have your estate? Other those kinds of things involved. It talks about relational things. It talks about spiritual things. And then again, the wild card is that unique card that you can have whatever you would like. And I can tell you some fun stories about those. But that's kind of the creation, kind of the purpose. We have seen an explosion of them around the world, some 13 languages. We only control the Spanish and the English, but we've licensed it. And in all these other languages around the world, you can go online and see those languages and see the purpose. And a number of those specific groups are also developing online. You can go online and do a Japanese version right now. I know the Swedish people are doing, German are doing, and French are doing some development. They're not online yet, but they're in the process of doing that. So that, kind of where we're at, encouraging people to just look at what's important to you now if you were having to make a decision. And the thing is, it's not a one time through the deck of cards. With each change in mobility, each change in the progression of the disease, some of the cards, you've already taken care of all of the financial things. You've set all that up, and maybe you've even started some of the legacy things already. But now we're dealing more with the pain issues, or some of the other medical things that are more important to you at the time. So it's an ongoing process.
Would you like to add anything to that, Gary? Like, give us a little description of the cards, like the number of cards,
Sure.
what some of the phrases are like, and then the sorting process and how the very important cards vary from the somewhat important cards.
Yeah,
Okay? Go
sure,
ahead.
sure. Yeah, the cards really are, I mean, it's so simple. It's amazing somebody didn't come up with this earlier. So there are 36 cards in the Go-ish deck. Each card has a statement of some kind on them. Like Larry was saying, it's something related to what's important to you or what might be important to you as you approach the end of your life. And they have statements regarding physical symptoms, pain, shortness of breath, not wanting to be on machines. There are statements about things that your financial affairs, things that might be important to you in terms of relating to your family, and things related to what's important to you in your spiritual care. So I have a deck laid out in front of me here. I'll pick up one card. It says to say goodbye to important people in my life. And if I were playing this with a friend or family member, I'd say, so put this in one of three piles. Is this very important, not so important, or somewhat important to you? And so they'll take each of these cards and put it in whatever pile it belongs in. Pick up the next card. It says, to have a nurse I feel comfortable with. Okay. And so I'd put that in my kind of important pile. So you go through all of the cards, and when you're done, you'll have a stack of cards that are very important. What we ask people to do is to take those cards and take the top 10 and then sort them in order of what's most important. Once they do that, then it's when the fun really starts, because then you start talking. You say, well, why'd you pick that card? What does that mean? What does that statement really mean to you? And it's a chance to have a really open, non-threatening conversation with the person who's sorted the cards.
And you can have that conversation with a physician or with a chaplain, But I think even more important than that is having that conversation with your family,
Yeah.
because they're the ones that are going to have to make your wishes come true.
Right.
No, that's not what my father wanted. No, that's not what my mother wanted. No, and so I think that it's really important that people understand that this is something for families to share, to make the discussions that they need to have much easier to have.
And it's really important that you listen, because sometimes the words that you think mean something to you this way don't necessarily mean the same thing to your family member or to the clinician that you're talking to. I've seen, we had a gentleman who picked I want to be kept clean. Well, most of us would think, well, we want to be cleaned if we have some soiling or, maybe bathing, whatever it might be. In this particular case, he had been an addict for so many years, and clean meant a whole different word to him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the
All
words
right.
are important.
Let's turn this over to the ladies, because you guys did part of the hard work by creating it or being involved in the creation of it and being involved in distributing the Go Wish cards. But now we have someone or two ladies that actually experienced it. Tell us how you started doing it, how long you were doing it, and I'm going to let you go as long as you need to get the answers that you want us to hear.
I started using them soon after we received them. I'm not sure when that was. And what I do is I use it to facilitate difficult conversations. I use it primarily in if I'm meeting with a couple, the patient and the spouse. And it facilitates difficult conversations that need to be had, but they haven't been had. They've been put off. They're afraid to talk about death because the patient doesn't want to talk about death because it sounds like they're giving up. And then the spouse doesn't want to talk about death because then it makes it feel like the patient is going to lose hope. So just getting people to focus on what's happening and to actually talk about some of these specifics is where these cards come in very handily, particularly for patients with MS, Parkinson's disease, advanced Alzheimer's disease, and some dementias. We want them to give the patients the opportunity to make their needs known while they can still express their needs. So I use them, I bring them out in part of the conversation. And I will sometimes I explain what they are, and I always leave the cards with the family, and it has the instructions, and I explain that. But I'll just go through and maybe sometimes just randomly pick a card. Like, for instance, yesterday I had a couple, and I'd say the patient was maybe 94, and he's really declining. He's a palliative patient, and he's there with his wife. And this one is to take care of unfinished business with family and friends. Patient became very silent, and the wife is staring at him because she wants to bring up the point that at his age, he has still not made a last will and testament. He didn't want to think about it. He didn't want to do it. And now here's the opportunity that for the wife to now say how important it is to her. So we discussed that. And it was just like it was very important to both of them. And I think the patient now understands how important it is to his family, to his wife. And we talked about what needed to be done because she's going to get her daughter involved. They're going to get it done online. So that was very helpful. Others important ones, and I just picked them up at random, like, not dying alone, to have my family with me. Is that important to you? I've had people say, I don't want my family sitting around and being sad. I just want to go when I'm alone. But others want to be surrounded by friends and family. Um, what else do we have? I mean, they're just all very simple to feel that my life is complete. That starts a conversation. It starts things about what they've accomplished and maybe some things that they still need to do. To be able to talk about what scares me is a really good opening for the patient to maybe bring up some things that they haven't brought up with their family. So it just really
They're very short statements, but they provoke a lot of thought and they are easy to discuss to die at home. Some people definitely want to die at home. Some people don't want to die at home. They don't want their family to remember that their death happened in their home. So that's a good one. To be free from pain, we talk about that and kind of assure them that towards end of life, they won't be in pain. So that's how I do it. And then I leave it with the families and then they'll use it the way it's supposed to be used. I've really found it to be very good rather than just general statements like, well, how are you feeling now that you've just got this terminal diagnosis? It's like, well, nobody really knows how to answer that question. And so when you start saying specifics, and also sometimes I give the cards to the spouse and let them go through and pick out one that they want to discuss and have the patient discuss it with them. So it's a very, very helpful visits as a chaplain because chaplaincy is not just about religion, it's about overall well-being and helping people remain hopeful and helping them deal with end of life issues, with chronic health issues, with lots of troublesome things. So I'm
Okay.
a big fan.
I
have a question for Deb.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay.
Gary.
So Deb, I know some people are going to be listening to this and not seeing the video, but I see you have the cards laid out on
I
the
do.
table
I'm
in
sorry,
front
and
of
I'm
you.
picking them up and referring to them. Should I not
Is that
do
what
that?
you do when you go see patients? Is that what you do? Do you find a table where you can lay them all out
I
and say, pick a
usually will
card?
have them in a deck and I will, spread them out and maybe I'll pick out one and bring it up as a conversation. And then another one, we move on to another topic, not being a burden to my family. That's a big one. That provokes a lot of conversation because that, as people know, especially with diseases like MS or Parkinson's disease or dementia, they know as their disease progresses, they are going to be a burden to their family. And that's an important thing for them to be able to express. So this is how I do it. But then also I will give the patient a chance to go through them and maybe pick out a particular topic that they want to discuss in this visit. And also I'll give it to the spouse because a lot of times they've wanted to bring up certain things and have been reluctant to with the patient. So I'm sort of the neutral person in the room facilitating the conversation, which is really sparked by the comments on these cards.
Keep in mind, we're sometimes seeing patients almost immediately after that diagnosis. They are so overwhelmed, emotions run high. I'm not sure your demographic of palliative care patients in the California region, but I will tell you here in Southwest Florida, my patient population is getting younger and younger. Okay, so I have a large number. My practice currently today is about 565 patients in my palliative care clinic.
Wow.
I have a lot of patients between the ages of 30 and 50. Okay.
Wow.
What happens in that age group? Marriage, children, your career should be taking off. A lot of times here in Southwest Florida, it's multi-generational families. Between those ages, you're taking care of maybe your parent or your grandparent, and we're all, again, multi-generational. We are also a melting pot of different religions, of course, different psychosocial issues going on, many different cultures, a lot of cultural diversity here in Southwest Florida. Very, very challenging to have opening conversations. So picture the 30-year-old female patient coming in with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer that has already metastasized to her bone, her lungs, maybe her brain. She's now worried about her spouse, her children, her parents, maybe her grandparents. Certainly not going to be telling them what her fears are because she doesn't want to hurt anybody else's feelings. And nobody else in the room wants to talk about the elephant in the room. And that is she's likely to pass, within the next couple of years. They don't want to talk about the death. So it really not only formulates a conversation with the patient and the family, but it provokes conversation with everyone in the room to think about today, tomorrow, things they didn't really think of. She doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They don't want to talk about her dying. So oftentimes the medical provider will perhaps bring up on the visit with her alone If she doesn't want to talk about it, again, lots of cultural diversity. And there are some cultures that will never talk about death. They never talk about death and dying. And that stems back to we are often the first ones to have those conversations, right? So the provider may pull up the one that says about being pain-free. What does pain-free mean to you right now? What is pain? Because there's physical pain, there's psychological pain, there's spiritual pain. Let's talk about pain. Now we'll bring the cards up again with the social worker. Again, the licensed clinical social worker will work with the family. And then he may choose to give the family 10 cards. And I want each of you to pick out 2 that are important to you. And that really provokes a very difficult, sometimes emotional, overwhelming conversation that sometimes will take multiple sessions to get through. So it really is amazing at opening up conversation. And to Chaplain Deb's point, I know that my social worker, again, may pick out 10 cards with one of my patients and go through on every single solitary session, right? Because we're not going to get through this deck. You're not going to get through this deck in one session or in one meeting. And you shouldn't.
Right.
You shouldn't, because as the patient progresses along their journey, some of these cards really become more relevant, and some of them you use over and over again.
Can I bring up a point, though?
Sure.
You're discussing people that are critical, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Good for me and my wife, we're not. When I
Right.
pulled out the cards, I put them in front of her and I said, okay, you follow this and let's see.
Mhm.
I look at it from a different angle because I'm not suffering the emotional part of it. But what it does is when she made the list of the cards that were the 10 cards that were most important, I took a picture of them because God knows what's going to happen in our lives. If I have that information, I can show it to our kids and say, this is what your mom wants. In addition to the fact that we have all the legal stuff that we're supposed to have about, keeping us alive and so on. But this is what she really thought. And I did just a photograph of the 10 cards. And I think that that's something that families can do when it's not necessarily emotional. You ladies are talking about a crisis situation. What I'm talking about is this is also something that people can talk about when they're not in a crisis situation. We're all going to pass at some point. Nobody's come back to tell me anything. Now, I
Yes.
know that I've got 2 chaplains here, so they have a different opinion than I do, but that's beside the point. That's for another discussion.
We have patients on palliative care for years.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, the earlier you have these conversations, Ken, the better off
Right.
you are.
I agree
You don't want to have the conversation
with you.
at the yes, you do want to have them with me.
Well, we want to have it with you later
that's
when we're there.
everyone.
No, we want to have that conversation with you when we
Correct.
need to have that conversation.
Correct.
Well, I didn't need to have that conversation, but I learned enough from that conversation with my wife that I now feel comfortable with making decisions. If God forbid I have to make those decisions because this is what she wanted. And I can show that that's what she wanted.
In the state of California, Ken,
Yes.
unless you fill out an advance directive for healthcare, there's no hierarchy decision maker. So these cards were also created to encourage people to have some knowledge in how to fill out that advance directive, so that when the crisis comes,
Very good point,
I don't know
Larry.
what the law is in Florida, but it's important. Like now you know, but not only taking the picture of them, but saying, what is that? What does that card mean? I mean, help me understand what that particular card means. I don't want to be attached to any, equipment, or what does that mean? Help me to understand any equipment at all. Absolutely nothing. Or do I have some? If we can do something for a little while that might help you to get better, would that be good? So it's along this whole spectrum of life that we need to be prepared for those times, because people come into the ED all the time that never planned to come in an emergency, and then they're in crisis.
Okay, ladies, I have another question. How long have you been using these cards now? And how many families have gone through this program with you?
So we have been using the cards now for a few months, about 6 months now, I guess at this
Really?
point. We are actually on the we'll be ordering more cards because we now have just about run out of them. I think this is the actual last deck I have in English, and I only have 2 more in Spanish. So you also have to, and I know my co-partners here in California will admit, there you have to read the room. So there's a very specific time when you can use these cards. When the
Right.
patient's coming in and extremely overwhelmed and maybe just got this diagnosis and they're really scattered, and that's not the time. That's not the time to have a thought-provoking conversation on the prognosis of your, disorder,
Right.
right?
Definitely.
So we take care of that. So we use them at different times during the trajectory of the disease. And we use them, I think one of the most riveting conversations that I've taken place with is a couple that have been married for 67 years. 67 years, they should know each other pretty well, you would think.
Not always.
No, because we laid these cards out and the husband was trying to speak for his wife, who was the patient. And she was like, "You don't know me at all." They didn't, because that's not, a Sunday afternoon conversation around the dinner table, right? They came from an era or a time where you didn't really discuss it. So what he thought her wants or needs were at the end of her life, and she's not imminently dying, was very different than what he thought. Okay. And vice versa. So it really opens up conversations, to your point, Ken, earlier in the disease versus later in the disease. And that is the best time to use them. But you will have to bring them out again. You're going to have to continue to use them because
because
sometimes
things change. Things
It
change.
changes.
People change.
Yep.
How would you, as Avow, get this out to other hospice facilities or palliative care people so that they know about this experience that you've had with it? Because I don't know, guys, have you gotten responses like this from or interviews with other palliative care organizations?
We do, and we are currently doing some marketing with some of our big purchasers and seeing how they're being used.
Yeah, I think we'd love to interview you guys separately
Yeah.
and get.
There's an organization called NPHI that, if you haven't reached out to yet, I think would be a wonderful organization, because they are a national organization and it's Hospice and Palliative Innovations. And when I do meet with other cadences that I have with other hospices, I do bring it up. I think it is very valuable to individuals. I don't even think they understand. They don't understand the concept of it, to be very honest with you. I know that we are the only ones in the area that are using it. But then again, we are the only palliative care organization in quite honestly, Southwest Florida. So we're it. I know that we've just recently introduced it on our hospice team. Again, so not only my palliative care patients getting younger, my hospice teams are, our hospice patients are getting
Interesting.
significantly younger. I think it's just a really thought-provoking idea. And again, you can use it in so many different ways. So many different ways.
You mentioned children.
Yes.
Let me encourage you. About 5 years ago, a pediatric palliative care nurse practitioner in the Midwest worked with Dr. Lee and created a pediatric set of Go Wish cards. And they're not online, but you can go to the website and see the reviews on it and order a set. But they're fascinating in that particular age area.
I bet they are. Children are so in depth that we don't give them credit for it.
And it's
Just to-
primarily geared towards, the caregivers, the parents. But, if the child is old enough to participate, they could participate.
Interesting. Okay. I did a little bit of research and I found out, and I don't know where the source is. I think it's from you guys, that there are the Big Ten cards. Now, they may not be my Big Ten cards. They're probably not any of our Big Ten cards, but it seems to be the ones that people, if I read these cards out, hopefully people will start to think about using the cards. So if you bear with me a minute, I'm just going to go through the cards real quickly. And if you have a comment about each card, just let me know, okay? Let's let people know about it. Number 1 card, the human connection. To have my family with me. Number 2, to have my family, friends at peace with my situation. I was surprised about that one.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's always at odds. And I tell people this all the time. Choose wisely. Choose your healthcare surrogate wisely. Choose your inner circle wisely. Make sure that everyone is on board with your wishes, your dreams, your goals, how you want the end of your life to look. There is nothing worse than being around the bed of someone who is at the end of their life and the others around them do
Or
not
arguing.
agree with their choice. It's
You
very,
agree?
very hard. Mhm.
Okay. The next is a series of cards called the control and truth cards. To have my doctor be honest with me.
Yes.
To have a say in which medical treatments I receive. And to have my financial affairs in order.
Yeah, I
Any
find
comments
those.
about those?
Yeah, I think those are three really important ones. Patients in general, especially with complicated diseases, they don't always feel that they're getting the full story from their various doctors, which I think is what is good about palliative care because we overlook everything. And I think sometimes we're more honest and forthcoming with them than their other clinicians. Having your financial situation under control is really important because so many people just put that off. And avoiding, and sometimes it's complicated, and it really leaves the other family members hanging. So that really is a big one, and I would think that that's important for a lot of people. But yes, having faith and confidence and feeling like you understand what's happening with your health and how things are progressing and what your future looks like is really important to patients.
Okay. Uh, the next category is the dignity and comfort cards. To be free from pain. To keep my sense of humor. And to be groomed and clean.
Mhm.
And that's, even if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what is one of the top ones? You need clothing, shelter, and you need to be able to care for yourself. Once that is taken from you, there is nothing more precious and nothing more beautiful than seeing a patient that feels good about themselves. Your entire outlook has changed. And if that is something that's very important to you, you need to let your family know. It's very important. And pain, again, pain is not always just physical. I think addressing pain as physical, emotional, and spiritual together is important. It has to be addressed in many different ways.
And
Okay.
that topic of being clean, being pain-free, being anxiety-free, that's an opportunity for us to explain, bring up the topic of hospice, because ideally, when you die under hospice care, especially under Avow's hospice care, you are going to be clean, at peace, pain-free, and just, all your worries in that category won't come to fruition because you will be comfortable.
Okay. Then the wild card. This is what my research showed. To meet with a clergy member or chaplain.
One of the three big needs for people as they approach end of life, um, studies show that it's important for them to feel that they're at peace with God. So as you're nearing end of life, you may have been away from your faith, the practice of your religion, or even if you haven't had a particularly religious or spiritual life, somehow that need to feel at peace with God is something that comes up. And then that meeting with clergy or a chaplain can help you explore those feelings. So I could see why that would be one of the cards.
Okay. Let's move on a little bit. The verdict. Should every care team use these cards?
Absolutely. And I think every member of the care team can use the cards differently and different trajectories of their patient's disease process. I think it just, you know, not talking bad about physicians, Dr. Gary, so don't think badly of me. Doctors are notoriously not the best having difficult conversations. I'm just saying it. They're not. And I think this could help facilitate some conversations with some, medical providers as well to ease their burden. It's not an easy conversation to have, but it opens up the door to have even more conversations. So I think
But
there's not a member of an interdisciplinary team that could not find these cards useful.
but they need to go through them themselves personally, because
Yes,
if they haven't
absolutely.
faced their own
Yeah.
mortality,
Right.
they're going to struggle doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you know how many conversations I'm sure have been had around the dinner table after practitioners use these cards for the first time?
Yep.
I'm sure it has spurred conversations in their own home.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sure
And
you're
it
right.
should.
And I
Right.
absolutely agree that doctors have difficulty with these conversations,
Mhm.
because my colleagues want things to go well. It's hard to have a conversation that
Right.
starts things aren't going the way we hope that they would.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these cards, they reduce decision fatigue for families when a crisis hits, correct? And they empower a patient to be the president, let's say the CEO of their own medical team.
In control.
Correct? In control.
It's-
That's a good way to
It's in
put it.
control because you're losing control of everything else.
Right. You're right. That's a great way to put it. And then why would the get over it, which is my thing, my website is, we are all get over it. The get over it moment is, why wait until you are in crisis to say what you want is actually a burden to your family.
Yes.
Why would you tell them sooner? It's kind
It's
of
a
what I
gift.
said about my wife.
It's a gift to your family. I said, taking this
You're right.
time of letting them know. I tell people, filling out advance directive is 10-minute gift to your family, because you don't need a lawyer. You just need two people to sign it. And so that, when the crisis comes, if it comes in a trauma situation, it's done.
Right.
But letting your family know what your wishes are, then you don't have the horrible family meetings that I've been in with Dr. Lee, and you've got two sides of the family saying, no, Dad would want this, no, he'd want that, and the healthcare are caught in the middle. So it helps healthcare people to be able to care for the patient the way they would like to be cared for.
Yeah, I agree, Larry. This is the greatest gift you can give your family is these conversations earlier. It just sets everybody's mind at ease, and there's no second guessing yourself, no feeling bad, no shoulda, coulda, woulda.
And it's actually easier to have them earlier than when you are actually facing life-threatening illness.
I want to add one thing, because we talked about the motivation being control. I just want to note that, all of us practice in multicultural situations, and there are cultures, I'm thinking because I work with a Chinese American organization where, the elderly patients do expect their children to make decisions for them, but they want them to make the right decisions. And
Right.
so even if they're willing to give up control, they want their children to do what they want them to do, and they don't have a way to talk about it. And so in Latino cultures, in the Asian culture, I think those cards provide a mechanism for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very high percentage of Hispanic Americans here in Southwest Florida. I have a large number of Hispanic patients, and that is culturally, they're very, very challenging and difficult conversations. But that's where you find the multi-generational families in general, right? So you have sometimes 2 and 3 different generations living together, and it really
Right.
gets them all on the same page. It does. It's just an amazing gift, and how these cards can really provoke these conversations is wonderful.
One of my last questions is to the ladies, probably. Do the cards help families stop arguing and start listening to what the patient actually wants? And do you have any
Maybe not at the
examples?
first visit. No, not generally at the first visit. It
No.
opens up the conversation, but no, there's still going to be disagreements for sure,
Okay.
because I may want something different for my loved one than they want, and I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that I'm heard and that they listen to me, what I have to say. It's going to take me a while to understand, well, you know what, this is not me. This is not about me. It's about my loved one. So that's why it's so important to continue to use them throughout the journey of the patient and the family so that we're all on the same page.
I understand.
Yeah.
Let me just start to get to the closing on this. All right. We're coming up on the time. I'm going to throw a question out. In one sentence, can you have a good life even with a serious illness? Or is it just something we say to feel better? What do you guys think?
Well, I think you're talking about managing,
Yeah.
managing pain, managing, uh, trauma personally, emotionally, spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And then these cards facilitate that discussion rather than everybody just sitting in the room and everybody tense concerning, and they don't want to say something, but they know something needs to be said.
Okay.
And I think palliative care is probably one of the greatest disciplines in using a family meeting tool.
I think serious illness can be a wake-up call. I had a little bit of a cancer scare a couple of years ago, and fortunately it didn't turn out. But it suddenly makes you start thinking, what's really important now? What do I want to do if I have 6 months or a year left? What's left that I need to take care of? And it can make your life better. Yeah.
So let me just close. Does anyone want to give a story at the very end? A quick.
Well,
quick
I can. We
to-
have a very young patient here. Well, we have several, but one in particular, my social worker works with her frequently, and so does Chaplain Deb, I believe. Yeah. She is of Haitian American culture, which is again another culture that is very deep in religion and seeking approval from multi-generational. Don't necessarily. There are some medication differences, lots of challenges with this family. She's again a very young lady. Her trajectory of her disease is such that she will probably maybe a year or two. While she was very open to having conversations about things, there are some housing insecurities, some food, lots of insecurities and unknowns in her life. But by her picking out these 10 cards and every single solitary week focusing on just one issue and not everything, sometimes we try to focus on making a plan for our patients for everything all in one visit, right? This is what we're going to do medically. This is what we're going to do psychosocially. This is what we're going to do spiritually. By focusing on one thing at a time really helps her coping mechanisms and allows her to bring that thought back to her family so that they can have a thought-provoking conversation so that it's not so overwhelming with everyone. And I know you work with the same young lady as well. Yeah. And we really try to stay to one specific challenge at a time. This girl is in her early 30s and she's got a lot on her plate. So I think by narrowing that down is the best thing we can do for her.
And it helps her have conversations with her parents, which is not really easy. I mean, there's a lot of family dynamics involved, but it helps her. It gives her something to take back to something that's on her mind, something that she's thinking about that she needs their support on.
Well, in summation, it seems like we're all in agreement that these cards are really important.
Very.
And I think the biggest problem is we have to just figure out how to get them out there. Maybe the podcast will help by engaging with people and letting them engage with the website to get the cards, or they can pay to get the cards themselves. And of course, other palliative and hospice places should know about these cards, and you guys should get out on the road and promote them.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll pay you a commission, these guys. Oh no, you're all nonprofit. Never mind.
I was going to say, we're all nonprofit.
Me too, unfortunately. Okay. So any one last thought you'd like to give? Let me ask the ladies first. We can go in order. Deb, you got any closing statement to make?
I think it was the statement I started with. I find the cards to be very helpful in engaging our patients and their families in difficult conversations on topics that they have maybe been thinking about, but they've been avoiding. And they're simple, they're non-threatening, they're very easy to use. And I found that both patients and their families have been very receptive to them. And I said earlier that I use them in the visit, but I then leave them with the family with the instructions of how to do it so that they can do it with other family members or spend time getting into more specifics using the cards one-on-one within the family.
And I think they
Okay.
provide some structure to conversation.
Yes.
You know,
Mhm.
sometimes you don't want to go off on the deep end. So it really does provide some structure
Mhm.
to a meeting or a conversation with the patient before you.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and it avoids like open-end, general questions that really are very difficult for patients to answer or to wrap their head around. But these are simple thoughts.
Larry, last thoughts?
We've sold several hundreds of thousands of these cards. So thank you, Ken, for this opportunity to get the word out to a whole new group of people.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Gary?
I think the last thing I would say is we've talked a lot today about how to use these in a healthcare setting, but I would encourage people to use them, you know, for date night or Thanksgiving dinner, or, if you want to get to know somebody a lot better, this is a great way to do it.
Okay. Well, it would be an interesting discussion over dinner, I think. I don't know if I would want to have this discussion. Maybe. Okay. So I want to thank all of you for taking your valuable time from the missions that you guys are on. And I want to thank you from all of our listeners and for all the future people that you'll be working with, for sacrificing your time and your energy and devoting your emotional conditions to helping others. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful
you.
thing.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm going to end with another quote, and this one is on reducing family conflict. Cards help you figure out what's most important so that your children aren't left arguing about what they think you might want. It turns a crisis into a follow-through of your wishes. And that's from bioethicist Vicky Kind. So we can give her credit for that. And with that, I want to thank all of you. And I want you to thank everyone on your staffs for getting involved in this and carrying this flag for me, because I really feel that this is important. And I'm glad I was able to get you guys all together. And I hope that this really helps to get this even more received all over the world. So thank you very much. And I'm going to let you all go now. And
God bless.
just do
Thank
do
you.
me one favor.
Sure.
Make somebody laugh today.
That's right. That's why I
All
like
right.
that card. Keep that laughter card.
Absolutely.
For any patient or family that wants information about palliative care or hospice anywhere in Southwest Florida, they can give us a call directly at Avow. Our main number is 239-261-4400, or they can contact us via email at avowcares.org, and we'll be more than happy to share any information about any of the services we offer.
Great. Thank you very much. Gentlemen,
Thank you.
thank you also.
Thank you. Nice to meet
Okay,
you.
have a great day.
Bye.
Enjoy your weekend. Okay, bye,
You too.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Okay, bye-bye. And that concludes this episode of We Are Old, Get Over It. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found our conversation both insightful and entertaining. Remember, age is a journey, not a destination. So embrace the wrinkles, the forgetfulness, and the occasional tech frustrations with a good dose of get over it attitude. Until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and keep getting over it. Ken out.
This podcast features a variety of perspectives. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are solely their own and do not constitute an endorsement by this program. Unless otherwise stated, this podcast does not endorse the products and services of our guests, but shares them for informational purposes only.